Today I'll be continuing on the go-kart rebuild series with this little box of goodies here I got in the mail from GoPowersports.com. Today we are going to be looking at the go-kart engine and giving it some parts that are going to make it go a little bit faster and look a little bit cooler. If you're a returning viewer, subscriber, thank you so much for your continued support on the channel. I do really appreciate it. You guys are what make this channel so awesome. I love the little community that I've developed on this channel over the years. And if you're a new viewer, thank you so much for stopping by and checking out this video. If you enjoy it, I highly encourage you to check out the other content I have on my channel, of course related to my go-kart build, my Corvette build, other automotive related content, and 3D printing now as well. Now, a few weeks back I posted a picture of some goodies I got in the mail from GoPowersports.com, and I'm going to announce that Go Powersports is now an official sponsor for the go-kart rebuild series. They've sent out some really awesome parts there. They have all sorts of really cool go-kart parts. They're a really awesome little company out in Texas, and they have parts to basically build your go-kart from the ground up. So a link to their website will be in the description. So if you guys are looking at building your own go-kart, that is a truly awesome place to get some parts. So now I'm going to go ahead and open up this box and show you guys what Go Powersports sent me. Then I'm going to go ahead and grab the engine, bring it over here, and I'm going to kind of explain what I'm going to do in today's video as far as refreshing and adding a few things to the engine. So like I said, the team at Go Powersports were nice enough to send me this little care package with some awesome parts to make the go-kart a little bit better and faster and look a little bit cooler. I just love their company font. It's like, it reminds me of the Ferrari font. I'm sure that's what they were going for, but just really cool here. So I'm going to go ahead and put the camera down. I've already opened it to look at the stuff, but I'll open it again and show you guys what I got. Okay, so here is the smorgasbord of parts that Go Powersports sent me in that little care package. I'm going to start left to right here. So in between these two cardboard pieces here is a new crankcase cover gasket. The one that I have on my go-kart currently is leaking a little bit of oil. It is the stock gasket, so I think either it got a little damaged or it just didn't seal properly when I pulled the crankcase off to remove the governor. So I'm going to be doing that, draining the oil, putting that new gasket on. Next here we have a really cool piece that I've been eyeing for a while. Now this is a clear valve cover made out of I don't know what type of plastic, but it's a pretty thick plastic, feels pretty sturdy. So that's going to be really cool to have that on there so you can see the rockers moving back and forth when the engine is on. And then of course it comes with a little breather tube and filter as well. I sent a few stickers so I can sticker up my toolbox and maybe my hydro flask. And then here we have three different sizes of 35 tooth sprockets. So this one I believe is 53, this one is 56, and this one is 60. So this one will give us the best acceleration, lowest top end speed, and this one will give us the highest top end speed and maybe not as great of acceleration. So I've got three here to play with so we can kind of mess with the gear ratios because my last few sprockets, the teeth were eaten away really badly, so that was in definitely need of some replacement. And finally here we have the best piece of all is a Mikuni Carburetor upgrade kit. Now I have heard and read that the carburetor on these Predator engines, and specifically the Predator 212, the carburetor is a big choke point, no pun intended, of these engines. So upgrading to one of these Mikunis really livens up the engine, better throttle response, a little bit more power too. So I'm really excited to add this on there. So we got, of course, the Mikuni carburetor itself. It's got a different throttle mechanism, so we're gonna have to get that situated. We've got here our little bridge tube that mounts to the engine, and then we mount that to the carb, a new air filter, and then our throttle cable as well. So some of this stuff will get set up more when the engine gets put back on the go-kart, but we can at least get the carburetor installed on the engine. And I might have to figure out my fuel line situation as well. Might have to get some more fuel line from the auto parts store and whatnot. So, but we can at least get it put on today and get it looking good and nice. So that is the smorgasbord of parts. We'll go ahead and bring over the engine, and the first step will be to drain the old oil so we can replace that crankcase cover gasket. Oh man, it's on there. Phew. Hopefully I don't drop the drain plug in the bucket. Okay, so before I lay the engine over to take the crankcase cover off, I want to take the studs for the old carburetor setup off, just because I didn't want to bend these and make it an issue getting these off. So a lot of people will just, they back two nuts onto each other and you can use a regular wrench. I'm just going to use a set of vice grips and just grip these things, since I'm not going to really be using these anymore. Gonna cover that up just so we don't get anything going in the cylinder head there. Okay, I'm gonna try and find something to support this a little more so it stays a little more level. So I think what I'm gonna do, just as a measure of, consistency here, I'm just going to do a quick torque stripe on all of these. I'm obviously going to torque these back to spec using my torque wrench, but this just kind of helps confirm to make sure you get the right position for all the bolts for their torque. So let's go ahead and take these guys off. Ooh, these are snug. Man, didn't think I was, oh, there goes one. Have to whip out the impact gun. There's another. Okay, got all the bolts off, got the two oil fill and level plugs out. So now, let's see. I don't know if I'm going to have to break this loose with a rubber mallet, or if we can get this off. Looks like we should. Oh, there it goes. Coo, coo, coo. Alright, I'm gonna wipe my hands off and then I'll show you guys the inner workings of the engine here. Alright, so got the crankcase cover off. Engine looks pretty clean inside. Ever since we removed the governor, you can see no longer back there. At some point I'll probably remove the low oil sensor, just because if you do quick turns it'll kill the motor, so sometimes that's a little bit of a bummer or buzzkill there. But having the motor apart like this makes me think maybe some billet upgrades in the future. What do you guys think? I'm thinking probably start maybe with the flywheel, billet flywheel, and then maybe we'll do a race cam and something else in here. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. So what I'm going to do next is clean up the mating surface here on the actual engine housing and the crankcase cover itself, and then we'll prep that and it'll be ready to put back on the engine, and then we'll move on to getting the carburetor on, and maybe I'll do the valve cover next actually, and then we'll do the carburetor at the end. That gasket's nice and crunchy. Yeah, it was leaking mostly at the bottom, so good thing we got a new one. Alrighty, got our fresh gasket from Go Power Sports. Put it on this side first. Alrighty, so we got the crankcase cover back on with the new gasket. So then when you put these back on, you're going to torque each bolt to 17 foot-pounds. So that is all good to go. Next, what I'm going to do is do the valve cover. Put the new clear valve cover on. That's real simple. It's just 4 bolts. But I'm also going to take this, the header off, just because it's kind of in the way and it's got some surface rust on it, so it's just kind of grody and everything. But basically my plan is for this, because I hate how far back this thing sticks off the back of the go-kart, because the end of the go-kart is pretty much right where the end of the header is, or the valve cover, I should say. So I want it to look a little bit more flush. So I'm going to probably cut the header here, just before this the threaded section for the muffler, because I do want to be able to run the muffler, because it is pretty darn loud, just straight piped. So I'm going to cut it there, and then probably cut it right about here, and then just weld this little piece on there, so then our muffler will stick out that way. So it'll still kind of point at a funny angle, but it'll be a lot closer to the rear of the go-kart rather than being this long thing, especially because the muffler adds another, I'd say, like 6 or 7 inches off the back of that too. So for reference, the header bolts or nuts are 13 millimeter. Probably should also get a new header gasket too, because this one's also kind of chewed up from use over time. Definitely after I cut and re-weld this thing, I'll be refinishing it and then painting it in a coating that is resistant to heat, and just so it won't rust too and it looks better. And then maybe I'll get some of that header wrap stuff. I don't know if it's actually going to be a whole lot functional, but it looks cool. For reference, the valve cover bolts are 8 millimeter. So that way you don't have to go back and forth from your toolbox a bunch of times. Now, currently I have my return spring set up for my throttle, just kind of jerry-rigged behind one of these bolts. But since this new carburetor is going to have a whole new setup, I'm just going to have to figure something out for that anyways. Plus, I never really like the look of this anyways. It doesn't look very professional per se, so we're cleaning up this engine to make it look a lot nicer than how it looked before. Gonna clean up, get rid of some of this tubing. I have to look into what this piece is here that sits on the gas tank. It's probably some sort of like emission thing that like filters, because this looks like a vent. So, but I'll have to look at online. But if you guys know, just let me know in the comments. So maybe I can just get a little simple line with like a breather, air filter or something like that. So it looks a lot better than this ugly looking box thing sitting on the top of the engine. And I know a lot of people like to get the gas tanks that remove it from the top, but I just like the convenience of the gravity feed. I don't have to do any kind of like pump system, so I'm going to leave it the engine or the gas tank on the top. But another thing that I'm considering doing is painting the gas tank and the what is it? The front cover here. I'm blanking on the term, but the cover that covers the flywheel and the pull cord. Maybe, you know, maybe a nice blue or something crazy. I've seen some people do this cool like speckled paint job where they kind of like it's just paint spattered on it. I think Redbeard's Garage does that, so that's pretty cool. So maybe I'll do something like that. I don't know. We'll see when we get there. So I got the bolts off. Let's pull the valve cover. Good. So we get a new gasket with this as well, which is probably good to replace this, because this valve cover has been on and off a few times, like when I changed the valve springs and whatnot. So everything's still looking good in there. I'll just show you guys. Oop, that's not supposed to be there. So now we will put this guy, of course with the gasket, right there. Oh, that's gonna look so cool. Okay, got the clear valve cover on. I might get a little bit more of this breather tube here so it can relax a little bit more rather than just sticking straight up. Or I don't know, maybe get a piece and then get a 90 so that it kind of sits a little better. I don't know, it kind of looks a little funny just sticking straight up. But the clear valve cover looks awesome. This thing's gonna be so cool when you see the valves or the rocker arms just ticking away when the engine's running. So that'll be awesome. So the last step here is let's get the new carburetor set on here. Like I said, probably won't get all the throttle linkage stuff all figured out, and the fuel lines, but at least we'll get the carburetor on there and somewhat situated today. Okay, so onto the carburetor now. So the first thing, obviously you want to remove your old carburetor setup off the Predator, but I've already done that. And then you're going to get ready to put the adapter plate on here and with your new gasket. But the other thing too that you can do, and it'll clear up a lot of space and make the engine look a lot cleaner, is you can take this whole old throttle assembly off here. And I personally never liked this throttle assembly. I thought it's kind of designed kind of funky, and that's why I had to use that weird valve or the throttle return spring setup on my previous setup. So there's just a few bolts here that you can go ahead and take off, and it'll remove this whole assembly on here, and it'll just clean up the look of the go-kart, or the engine I should say, altogether. And then the other thing too that you notice is, so before you had this plate that was sitting here on those studs, and if you look at if you compare the size of the gasket, which is for your Mikuni, this is the size of the port on the head, and then you look at the size of the old plate that sits on there, I mean, that's a decent amount of restriction. So it's almost like they had a restrictor plate, you know, sitting on your Predator. So just that alone is probably going to liven up the go-kart a lot, just in the shape by itself, and not even considering the mechanism and how much better the carburetor is itself. So alright, I'm going to go ahead and remove this plate, and then we'll go ahead and start putting in the hardware to get the new carb mounted. Alright, so I got the old throttle linkage assembly off, and it's amazing how much it cleans up the look of the I keep saying go-kart, the engine, and so it'll give me a lot better looking. Maybe now I'll get a nice cool aftermarket spark plug lead, like a red one, make it look all racy. I did also take this box off up here. I'm pretty sure this was just a breather filter assembly for the gas tank. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what it looked like to me. So I think what I'll do is I'll just get some new hose and like a little breather filter from the auto parts store instead of that ugly looking box thing. Although now I have these stupid brackets here, so I'll have to figure out what to do with these. But alright, so now we're going to move on to putting on the carburetor. So you get your little bridge here. You're going to first put this guy on and secure it with bolts. Just going to be it's not going to be like studs like it was before, so you're going to have a bolt going into each one, and then you use a bolt and a nut on the other side of this to mount it to the carburetor. And I should also note, in the kit you get a bolt, shorter bolt and a longer bolt. The shorter ones you're going to use to mount the bridge or breather tube, not breather tube, I don't know what you call that, carburetor bridge there. You're going to use the shorter ones to mount this to the actual head, and then the longer ones are going to be used to mount the carburetor to this, because you're going to have to go through this, the carburetor bracket, and then also thread 2 nuts on the back of those. So just keep that in mind when you're picking which bolts to use. Alright, so we got our air bridge here. Of course, don't forget to put your gasket on in between the head and the air bridge. And now we'll go ahead and use a nut and a bolt here, feed it through the back. You're going to have to put the bolt through the back this way because there's not enough room to feed the bolt through in between here. So the bolt's going to go back this way, and then you're going to put the nut over here and tighten. This would probably be helpful to have 2 people, but it is just myself tonight, so I will figure out how to do this with one hand. And there is an O-ring on the back of this, so you shouldn't need any kind of gasket in between the air bridge and the carburetor itself. Okay, the Mikuni is on. So that was a little tricky to do with one hand, but we got it on there after some tinkering with the wrenches and whatnot. So you can see with the air bridge and the carburetor, it does stick out a little ways from the engine, and then you're going to have your air filter over that, but that's usually how most setups are. You might be able to get a shorter one, a shorter version of the air bridge. I'm not 100% sure, but you could check on that to try and bring this a little bit closer and more flush. But that's how it's going to look. This is going to slip on, then you obviously tighten that hose clamp. In the next series of getting this set up, I'm going to get the fuel lines situated because I don't have any fuel lines with me today, and also get the throttle linkage situated. This is not, I misspoke earlier, this is not the throttle, this is the choke. It's kind of like a two-stage choke. It's not like the Predator one where it's a gradual choke, and then you adjust it's a vertical throttle like piston type thing on this carburetor. So you undo this cap and then you put your throttle cable in this little top piece here. So it's a lot cleaner of a setup, really looks nice and cool, and it just ups the look of the engine overall. So when I have this red air filter on here, plus I'm going to get some type of nice red air filter for this and then air filter for this, we're going to all look nice and racy here instead of the stock Harbor Freight get up. So I think that's going to do it for this video today. Got the carburetor on there, got the clear valve cover, and we changed the crankcase cover gasket. So we still have a lot of other goodies that we're gonna have to get into. Got to cut this guy to size, re-weld it. I'm looking at getting a new welder though, so that's gonna be coming soon. And then we'll probably get a few more parts for this guy too. Maybe like a new spark plug lead, like our nice red one, and some other minor things too. So that's going to do it for this video of me kind of tinkering on the Predator 212, adding a new crankcase cover gasket to prevent the oil leak, new clear valve cover, and starting the install on the Mikuni carburetor. I wish I could have finished the whole thing tonight, but I wasn't really sure exactly what I needed, so I'm going to go and prep a parts list so I can go to the auto parts store and get everything I needed. So we'll be all nice and good to go and fire this thing up. I will add, whenever you're working on this thing, it is easier to do it when it's secured down to something. Like you might have saw me struggling a little bit undoing some of the bolts. So if it's either on your go-kart or you have a way to mount it to your workbench, either with the bolts, the mounting bolts, or just via like a clamp, way better way to do it so it doesn't keep moving around on you. But hope you guys enjoyed this video of me tinkering on this engine. I just love this Predator 212 engine. I've run it on the go-kart ever since I started the go-kart, and it's just an awesome little engine for $100. It's a really great way to learn about internal combustion engines, and it's kind of like a mini Corvette engine because it's like an overhead valve type setup. So it's a really cool engine. I'm excited to keep upgrading it for the go-kart rebuild project here. So if you guys enjoyed this video, definitely hit that subscribe button because there's a lot more go-kart videos to come on this project. And other than that, I will see you guys in the next one.